Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Mainebiz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
There was a time when the news business was simple. People read their local newspaper, they watched one of the evening network news shows, maybe they read a magazine or two for some variety. Well, those days are long gone. The internet has completely revolutionized our access to information. Newspaper readership is down. Cable news channels like CNN and Fox have surpassed the networks. But what does it all mean for the news business in Maine? With us today to discuss these issues are Ron Belyea, President and Chief Operating Officer of VillageSoup, which owns 4 newspapers and websites in Maine and beyond, Donna Brassard, publisher of Mainebiz, Richard Connor, President of MaineToday Media, which owns the Portland Press Herald, Kennebec Journal, and Morning Sentinel, and Steve Thaxton, President and General Manager of WCSH 6, the NBC affiliate in Portland. Welcome. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Al.
This is one of those times when we get to kind of turn the camera inward, so to speak, and talk about the business that we're in. You know, I was thinking about this show this morning when I got up and what we were going to talk about, and I was sitting there in my PJs in bed with my laptop on my lap, with the remote in my hand. I was scanning 5 television news channels, local and cable news, while I was looking at 3 different newspapers and also flipping over to YouTube to check see how many hits Mainebiz Sunday got last night, and people watching it. So that was what just dawned on me. It's like, things have changed, haven't they? All of that before my feet hit the floor, and I didn't have any ink stains on my hands. So that's clearly what we want to talk about today, is what's the nature of this business, how has it changed, and how are you coping with that from a business point of view? I want to start off with kind of talking about the customer side first, the consumers, and I want to get a kind of a definition of how do Mainers, where do they get their news, and how do they get their news? And Ron, I'm going to start with you first, because I think maybe that you have a perspective on that.
Okay, Alan. They get their news in the traditional ways, radio, TV, web, but I think what's really changed is the mobile devices, the iPads and the Kindles, and the older population surprisingly are adapting these very quickly and using them.
I'm glad you said that, young man.
Yeah, I'm young.
That was the other thing. After I leave my bedroom, I'm walking around with my BlackBerry all day long, so it's the same thing. Yeah. So they're using those devices. I guess one of the other questions I'd ask is Maine different than other states in terms of its population and how they consume news? We're an older, more rural state. What's been your experience with that?
From a television standpoint, it probably serves all of us on a local side because traditionally television viewers are a little bit older. So when we take a look at the ratings from 10, 12 years ago, they're relatively consistent when it comes to local news. In entertainment programming, it may be a different story, but the bread and butter of a local news organization is a local newscast, and we're relatively stable.
Okay. And that's another question I had, too, is that you mentioned the word local like 3 times in that answer. And how important is local in terms of news for Mainers? What portion of their news diet, if you will, is local, and how important is that to what you can sell?
I think local is the key to successful business model in the news industry. I think that people are looking for unique information and local information. I think the internet and the cable news and everything has opened up so much information. We have access to so much news and information. And they can get it in many, many places. What they're really desiring is the local stuff, not the national stuff, not the wire service stuff, but what's going on here, what's going on now. And that's content that has to be done on a local level and has to be done uniquely. And that's what people are craving. I also think, to answer your question before, I also think that what's happened with the internet, I think that in the beginning we kind of thought that the internet was going to bring us a different audience. I think that we thought that you know, our regular news delivery, whether it was print or broadcast, was going to give us those same people. We're going to get a new audience with the internet. But I think what we've discovered over time, I'm not going to speak for you guys, but I think that I've noticed in our industry, in the business news industry, what's happened is it's relatively the same audience. Maybe 20% of people that are not the same that were reading print. But it's just the same audience looking for access to information in a different way.
Okay.
So it's accessing the information through different media. And I think that's something that we all have to sort of take a look at to make sure that we're providing the information in a way that people can get access to, whether it's print or online or mobile.
Okay. Richard, what's been your experience with that?
Well, I think that Mainers and most of northern New England, really the northeastern part of the country, by and large still relies on newspapers, quite frankly, and traditional sources of local news, television, radio for that matter. So there are more devices, there's more opportunity for information in a variety of ways today than we were used to in the past, but I think the traditional models still work. I think people still read newspapers. You're obviously a news junkie, so you've got your BlackBerry going and you're looking at 5 stations, but we find by and large people are still reading older population areas. They're still reading their newspapers with great regularity, and they still depend on traditional forms, and that would be, in my opinion, television, radio, and newspapers. And then, oh, by the way, you have mobile devices and laptops and all those other things.
Okay, well, let me move on to the next part of this, and I want to come back to you, Richard, is there have been changes. There are more outlets, more outlets and more choices for news, and how has that changed your business model? And really, every week we try to get down to how do you make money doing this? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, in our case, we bought 3 daily and Sunday newspapers from a company that was headquartered in Seattle. So if we have a model, and I'm not sure we do, we're in the business of acquiring and running newspapers. We own some in northeastern Pennsylvania, and we've owned them in other states. Is the best opportunities for us would be newspapers that are owned by somebody far away and where decisions are made far away. So what we do is quite traditional. First of all, we still rely heavily on print. The bulk of our revenue comes from print advertising.
Okay, so it's still on the ad side.
It's still in the ad side.
Okay.
Circulation for us is about 15-20% of our total revenue. So advertising in newspapers, and when we can buy newspapers that where we can install local leadership, local ownership, and make decisions in a second, and treat our customers really well, it works. It's an old formula, and so in a little bit of it, it's back to the future in a lot of ways for us.
Let's have others weigh in. Ron, talk about your business model and how that has changed and is evolving.
I agree a lot with what Rich said. The thing we all look for is additional revenue to pay our reporters and pay our staff, and we go at it a little differently. Online, we look to have a lot of people paying a little. We believe that's the model. We have 460 biz members currently on our Knox and Waldo biz sites paying $20 a week. When the recession hit, we were hurt with auto real estate help wanted, I think, like most other, and by focusing on the small business owner, i.e. Main Street, even during the recession, we were supported very well by the Main Street merchants and the members of the community. So I agree with him. Local is key. Local ownership, local decisions.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break there. We're going to come back and I'm going to ask you two the same question about your business model and what's been changing for you and how you're seeing it going for the future. So hang right in there. Stay with us. We'll be right back to continue this discussion with our news media experts. Stay tuned.
Mainebiz Sunday is brought to you by Bangor Savings Bank, where you can enjoy free ATMs worldwide.